She says that the next day after this beating, in the morning, he left with Mencia to El Bohío de Villegas, meaning her master, that he was there for only one day. Because remember, Guayabax had been lent out to Villegas, but he didn't last even a day there because the fever returned. And about 4 or 5 days later, he died. Mencia says that some other natives, doesn't say from where, came and took his body and they threw him into the savannah and that they did not bury him. The judge slash prosecutor then asked her if anybody else had beaten Guayabax before he was beaten by Briseño. And she says, no, no one else beat him. It was just Briseño. The statement then concludes saying that she actually spoke Spanish very well, in that she understood everything and that she answered everything. As part of the cross-examination, we know that Mencia was called again to the stand and asked to confirm her statement, since so many people have been giving different statements in the case. But she said that her statement was true and that she only remembered one other detail, which was that Guayabax was sangrado, but that she didn't remember how long or when exactly that happened. Could it be that Solis influenced her to say that, to make it seem like he did something for Guayabax? It could be. We're not gonna know. She was asked one last question in her second interview, and she was asked how long Guayabax lived after being beaten, and she said that in reality she didn't remember very well, but that everything else was true. The second indigenous person to be called to the stand on the 24th of October is Catalina. She was a Navoria de Casa of Solis. So quick recap, Navoria de Casa were indigenous people who worked in the homes, cooking, cleaning, etc. And then there was Navoria de Granjas o Minas, which is what Guayabax was, who were treated much more poorly because they were used in the mine. She was also given an interpreter. Her interpreter was also Juan de Morales, and she gave basically the same testimony as Mencia, saying that it was Gaspar Briseño who had beat Guayabax. But she gives a few details that we don't hear anybody else saying. She says that the beating produced blood, but it was because Guayabax was suffering from sarna. Scabies is a disease of the skin that is caused by very small mites that get under your skin, and when they lay eggs, it causes intense itching and welts like we see here. She then says this, that after Briseño had assaulted Guayabax, Francisco de Solis then took the whip and also assaulted him. Every time Solis would hit him, he would say, Ahura, Higuerito, and Guayabax would respond, Ahura, Señor. He then slapped him in the face and then had him untied. She says that Solis came directly to her with Guayabax and told her to feed him, and that she tried to feed him, but he refused. And he said that it was because le dolía el corazón. He then got a fever and stayed with her in the kitchen the whole night. This would indicate that she probably slept in the kitchen every day. And this is what she declares happens next. Que otro día en la mañana, Villegas, remember Solis's best friend who had borrowed out Guayabax, mandó a los indios que fuesen a su hacienda, que está cerca del pueblo, a poner maíz, y que la dicha Mencia, testigo antes de estar recibido, llevó al dicho Guayabax a la dicha hacienda del dicho Villegas. Guayabax was supposed to stay at Villegas until his service was over, but he came back the same night. He came back with a worse fever. He was sicker than ever. And in her understanding, he was cold. He was shivering. And he got very close to the fire in the kitchen to try to keep warm. And that he never wanted to eat, sino que más que se echó allí en la ceniza por el fuego y se estuvo allí aquella noche otro día. And that by the fourth day, Guayabax had died. And that other natives and a Christian who is not named took Guayabax's body to Solis. Solis ordered for him to be buried, but she wasn't sure if it had actually happened. She also backtracks a little bit and says that when Guayabax was assaulted, Solis and El Chocarrero were there, and that El Chocarrero told Solis the following: No le des más, señor. No le des más para que se ensucia. Y que todavía el dicho Solís le daba a Guayabex, diciendo, ajura, iguarito. Ajura, señor, decía Guayabax. She then declared that everything she had said was true, and the document actually says, porque la dicha india es algo ladino, de manera que claramente se entendía todo lo que dijo. She had dominated the Spanish language, but she also understood her native language. She hadn't lost that. She was also cross examined by the judge prosecutor, and the only thing she changed was that Guayabax supposedly didn't get fever the same day, that it was another day, and that he did end up eating a little bit. The judge now calls up to the stand Sebastianico, otro indio de Solís. And he's described a little bit differently than the rest. He described as un indio criado y naboría dicho Solís. He was also given an interpreter, the same Juan de Morales. And after being asked, he responded in very clear Spanish. He was present when Gaspar Briceño brought back Guayabax and Antonico. He saw how Solís had Guayabax tied up. But then Solís tells him to go get Juan Barra. Remember Juan Barra? He was one of the witnesses for the defense. He had said in his testimony that he really admired Guayabax's work ethic. So we have to question why would Solís ask Sebastianico go get this particular person? But Sebastianico says that when he came back, he found that Guayabax was being untied, in that he had soiled himself, y que le salía sangre de las nalgas. And these are his words. Y que vio Francisco el loco, meaning Solís el loco, tener un látigo de caballo en la mano, y que Antonico, otro indio que el dicho briseño trajo con el dicho Guayabax, le dijo a este testigo que el dicho Gaspar Briceño le había azotado y que después de desatado lo llevaron a la cocina. The rest is very similar as everybody else. Guayabas is taken to the kitchen. Catalina, la india, le trata de dar de comer. His testimony coincides with Catalina. And he also mentions that Guayabax died laying on a piece of wood, but that he wasn't sure if he had eaten, if he had actually been buried or just thrown into the savannah. And in the end, he says that he's a Christian and he's baptized. So here it would seem like the judge is satisfied with the witnesses and gives a quick summary of what has happened during the trial.